We are live. Woo, we're live. Let me check Facebook to make sure that's actually true.
Oh, wow.
And we are. Yay, here we go. Hi.
Very cool. Hi.
So I say this every week, and it's true every week, but I'm really excited about today's conversation. This is episode 18 of the Practical Magic Show. The Practical Magic Show is about unveiling magic and how to use it in your life. And so magic for me is the opposite of logic. And it's understanding how to play with life in a different way that's not so like action reaction based, and understanding that there's more nuance and there's more fun and playfulness in being able to create. When you create this way, you tend to have even better results in your life than when you do it the opposite. So naturally, when I thought about who the magicians are that have impacted my life the most, you were at the top of that list. Like there was no magic show without Leslie McAllister. So I'll introduce you. And I said this in my post. I said it to you pre-show. You're my tarot queen. Like that is who you are. You are a true magician. You know, you're in my book, which I don't know if I told you, but you'll be receiving a copy of that because, you have a fun role in my life. And sometimes I feel like part of the show is revealing like my best kept secrets. And, you are absolutely like one of my secret, I don't want to say secret, I was going to say secret weapons, secret wands, I guess.
Oh, secret wand. That's really cool.
Yeah. So you are a tarot reader. You own a magical shop in Pittsburgh where you offer lots of different ways for people to bring magic into their world. But today we're going to be focusing on the magic of tarot and how to use that to access your inner wisdom and create beautiful things in your life. So without further ado, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right into just, I guess, like a small conversation around tarot. And I've actually never asked this question before because I just love it so much that I play with it myself. And like I said, when I need professional help, I come to you. But what's happening when we use tarot?
Oh, that is such a beautiful question. I think that for me, it's, relying on trust, which is also trusting the unknown, trusting that unknown force. And I think that is a little bit of the glimmer of tarot and its magic is just trusting, trusting and being excited to turn that card over. Do you know what I mean? It's this, not really knowing what you're going to get. And then sort of surrendering to the message that's coming through. That's what I think is kind of the thing that's going on with tarot. And I think it's, we are a human species that loves mystery. So many of us love to be mystified and awestruck. And I think tarot offers us a mystical teaching, magical mystical teaching that once you start to get into an intimate relationship, you find yourself being awestruck by the incredible teachings of the cards. And I think that's what keeps people coming back.
I love that you went straight to trust and surrender because
the hangman, yeah.
It immediately made me think of two things. And one is, I think it was this year or last year when we did my annual reading and we like jumped for joy that the Five of Swords wasn't there. This card would just haunt me, but it was this message of, releasing control and surrendering. And so I love that that's where you took it, because it also, I reflect back on my own relationship to tarot, which was, I think, a desire for trust and surrender, but very much about control and predictability. So you said mystery, trust, and surrender.
Yeah.
It's something I've learned through using tarot over the years, but control and certainty were ways that I was trying to use tarot. What's going to happen? when is this going to occur? And so I'd love to hear you kind of speak on that aspect of it too. I think for a lot of people, tarot is this like, no, don't tell me what's going to happen. Like, I don't want the death card. What does that card mean? Like, so can you talk about that, the opposite of the mystery, surrender and trust?
The opposite. When you're like, here's what immediately wanted to come through when you were saying all of that stuff was learning the discipline of that. Because when we begin to read tarot, anybody that's picked up their first deck, they're so excited. I love to be on the end of watching people purchase their first deck. You know, I own a store that supplies tarot. And so we get lots of first time readers. And so what I'm getting at is getting home, opening the deck, shuffling it, asking the first question, pulling a card and saying, well, that doesn't work. Pulling another card, pulling another card, pulling another card. And then you're starting to get confused, in my opinion. You're when you keep pulling card after card after card in that scenario, you're telling the team that you're working with, I don't believe what you're telling me. I don't trust you. And so tarot is also a vehicle, a chariot, if you will, and a tool to help you connect with your team. And when I talk team, I'm talking your spirit guides, the ascended masters and healed ascended ancestors, and, you know, extraterrestrial celestial beings that may choose to work with you, animal beings that may choose to work with you, insects, et cetera, et cetera. You are connecting with them through the vehicle of tarot. It is a safe space to continue that conversation. And so when you're pulling the card and you're not trusting the first read or the first pull, you're telling your team, I don't believe what you're telling me. It's almost as like coming to a friend and asking a friend for their opinion or their consolation or counsel, and you just go, nah, I don't like what you're saying and I don't believe what you're saying. Well, then why did you come to me in the first place? And it creates discord. I hope that answers your question. So going into it with trust, going in, and we're human, we're flawed, we're not perfect. And so the want and need to pull card after card after card, if the first answer you're receiving isn't to your liking, that's fine, you know, right? Like you kind of finally get the star card and you're like, okay, this is good. Or like, I'll settle here. This is the answer I'm looking for. But what's so incredible is tarot is also a teacher. And us being the pupil in that, you know, there does become this sort of respect that comes in. And tarot will teach you very, very, very quickly, because you'll keep seeing that first card come up. Well, there it is. There's that Five of Swords again. I guess I can't escape it. I hear that every day, several times a day. Wow, I just can't escape this one card. It keeps coming up for me. Because tarot's saying, or your guides are saying, hey, we want you to resolve this because trust us. If you resolve this, you can get to the next level. And what we're all just trying to do is heal and ascend to the next level. And it feels like if you're like getting to the next level of a video game, as I've heard it described, you know? So, you know, a lot like succumbing to it, being disciplined in it, being devoted, like creating a devoted practice to being taught by your tarot, I think is what's so incredible. Because, you know, the common misconception is that tarot is a fortune teller's tool. And we've really learned very quickly, especially when we're using it for self-work, it's really about shadow work and self-awareness. We're learning about how to create boundaries. We're learning about self-care. We're learning about patterns that need to be healed and worked through. Now, if you can have a reader that's intuitive or maybe channeling messages, and that's where some of that can come through. But ultimately, the cards to me are about they're a healing tool.
There's so much in there. Let me just like,
Sorry, Vanessa.
no, in the best way ever. I laugh because I'm a great student of tarot. I'm also a stubborn student of tarot, and I'll often I'm the pull another card, except I shuffle and just get the same card over. I think I very my guides have a great sense of humor, and they're also 10 times more stubborn than I am. They're like, "What, you didn't hear me? Oh, you didn't hear me? Oh, you didn't hear." And I'm like, "Is this whole deck full of this?"
Wait a second, I shuffled this
Yeah.
3 times.
Yes.
Cut it 3 times.
Yes. But go ahead, please.
Well, I was just gonna say that. There you go. That's the building of the relationship. That's where you start to get that, that bond.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought in this connection to guides and ascended masters and different spirits and different energies, because you sort of added even more to the answer of the question of what's happening when you use tarot. There's this other connection to the unknown or the unseeable.
Yeah, let me speak to that for a moment too, because I don't know if this gets talked about as much, and it's very important, but you are opening a portal when you're working with tarot. And so, yes, it's become very popular, but again, I want to call in the devotion and the respect of the deck. And that also calls in the need to ground, center, and protect your energy prior to doing the work. So before I even crack my deck open and begin my day of tarot ritual, I cast a spell, I cast a circle in my space. I call in my guides to protect me, my gatekeepers, my ancestors that are in place to protect me, my body protectors. And I tell them that we're going to do this work. And I create a sacred circle of protection in this space. And I create a sacred circle of protection for each person that I'm going to be reading for. Because you want a pure channel to come through. And that's the thing, and I may be jumping ahead too, so forgive me, but it's just kind of this stream of consciousness. But it's like I channel messages for the highest and best good of people. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking to receive any messages that could block or deter, because the messages that want to come through are pure. With that being said, your guides understand that there is free will, and I oftentimes, not every time, but if I'm working with somebody new, oftentimes I'll say look, you have free will. What we can share with you today will be determined upon whether you accept and claim it and want to move forward with it and feel in alignment with that. Your guides aren't going to force you to do anything. Tarot isn't going to force you to do anything. It's an illumination, and it's a message, and it's a support, and it can be chosen, and it can be brought to heart or not. Again, we are free to make our choices. That's why sometimes there's a cardinal that's sitting out here, which cardinals are spirit messengers and guides. They often say that your loved ones are near, your spirit guides are near when a cardinal appears. So confirmation. But yeah, so your guides know, listen, this is our loving message for you, just like your best friend would say, listen, this is my loving message for you. But ultimately, you need to make the decisions you need to make in your everyday life. We're just here to support you. Mm-hmm. Guides, they're guides. We're guiding you. Mm-hmm. You want to turn left, turn left. Mm-hmm. You want to keep moving forward with me and go this way? That's great too.
Mm-hmm. I love the introduction of free will into the conversation, because something you said earlier on really kind of struck me, that it's kind of a mirror. Regardless of even what's in the card, the way it even mirrors just your response to the card mirrors back something that could be worth looking at, right? Even if forget that the card is the 10 of swords. Like if your reaction to the card is, oh, I don't want that to be my card. It's like, what are you resisting even in yourself? Like it's just going to mirror back whatever is happening, whether or not you want it to.
A funny story about the 10 of swords too. Like this is why tarot is so cheeky and fun to work with. And this is why I also I always recommend pulling a card a day, because they'll show up in different ways. Like the last time I got the 10 of swords, I was like, okay, 10 of swords, like this is an ending to something. You know, a lot of times I've seen it show up as sibling rivalry. Well, that day I fell flat on my face. Like flat on my face, just like the character Pamela Coleman Smith's Rider-Waite, Smith deck, right on down. So it was like, yeah, you fell. You literally fell. So that's why it's so interesting. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying like take your cards literally, but they have to teach you in so many different ways, and you'll start to see, some of their personalities coming through. That's why it's like. That's actually why, I don't always read, I'm getting probably way ahead of myself, but I don't always read reversals, because the card can be taken in so many ways just as it lays, in its upright position, but there you have, this literally tripped and fell.
Yeah, literal expression of the card. Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of your particular magic, not even just the magic of tarot or any how-tos on how to read tarot, but I want to reverse engineer some of your magic, because in my experience of you tarot is one expression of your magic, and it's incredible and unbelievably powerful, but there's so much more wisdom and intuition and depth that you bring to it that I think really is your magic. Tarot might magnify it, but you're the magic, right? At least that's for me, and I shared in the intro that you told me I was pregnant 2 weeks before I got pregnant. That's not tarot, or maybe it is. I don't know.
I have a weird thing with pregnancy. I've predicted so many. I've helped people get pregnant. It's very straight. I am timid in saying that, because there's something about me and babies, and I've chosen to live a childless life.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of biologically might not be able to, decided not to find out. And then B, there's okay, so I don't want to go down the path of feeling pain, not having, so I'm going to make the choice not to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's almost like I've put a little bit of that energy into people that want it so badly. And yeah, so I can smell it is what is so weird. I don't know how to describe that.
It's
I can't describe it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's magic,
It is magic. And so what else do you bring to, if somebody were wanting to emulate, let's say, I always love to play with this question, so take your time answering it. But let's say I had to, life or death scenario, who knows why, I had to inhabit your body for a day. And I had to convince even the most ridiculous skeptic that I was you. And I had to give them a reading. I had to be your magic. What would I be tuning into and sensing and feeling into that would help me be you?
Yeah. My surroundings. I'm hyper aware of my surroundings. And I have so much Mercury in my birth chart, so I'm always like anticipating things. Like if somebody's behind, so that comes into everything I do. Like I'm constantly thinking about my actions. I'm constantly thinking about what's coming into my spirit any given time. I'm reading everything. I'm reading the light as the sun's going down. I'm reading the birds on the wire. I'm reading the clouds. I'm reading the flicker of a candle. I'm reading my own body rise and fall and where I'm feeling things in my body. I'm completely sensual.
What do you do with that information?
I digest and process it to kind of come up with a answer. It's really like putting everything in a blender. I feel like is kind of what my magic is. It's like it is actually very practical. It's very sensual magic. Like I said, when I say sensual, right? I'm smelling, I'm tasting, I'm hearing, all of that stuff. I'm feeling in my spirit form what's happening. And so for me, it just feels like very bodily, like I'm very in my body.
These are the moments of the show that I love because I'm like, I have no idea what that would be like. So this is beautiful. This is beautiful. So you take in this information and you might not be even able to answer this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So you take in this sensory information from your surroundings, and that includes your spirit form and what it's experiencing. Can you talk about the difference between that, the sensory experiences, and what the spirit form is experiencing? And you can also answer a different question or correct my question.
It feels very blurred. The lines feel very blurred because it's very hard to explain. I've done it my whole entire life. I've never known any other way, and I've never questioned it. So I'm like, feel on the spot. I'm like, how do I put this into words?
Yeah, take your time.
So I think for me, like sensing spirit is hearing spirit, is tasting spirit, is feeling it, is smelling it, and then seeing it form in the natural world. And then I think and then what comes in is a tremendous amount of trust and devotion and it's like acceptance, which takes time, and it ebbs and flows too, because sometimes, we can feel let down by some of these things and then have to recreate or reestablish a relationship to it. It's I guess if I had to put it into words, like, okay, so we know like our archetypical idea of witch is to light candles and work with herbs and have this mortar and pestle and lots of smoke and incense around and casting circles and saying, incantations and declarations and intentions, all of these things. A lot of times I will just pull ripples of like sonic energy up out of the earth and send it out. And I do it like that. And I've done it my whole life. And it recently, my sister and I have kind of compared notes, and she's like, yeah, I just think it. I just put it out there, I just like embody and radiate the energy out.
This is so awesome. Go on.
I will tell you this, and I've talked to another fellow witch, and it was so funny. I was like, oh my God, I do the same thing. When I go, because I've been solitary, because I grew up in a small town by the lake. I didn't have a group of witches. It wasn't cool, like my neighbor and I found a witchcraft book in my dad's library when I was like 8 and she was 13. And all of a sudden, like we were, just completely immersed in this world. And so I've never really had, anybody to talk to about this stuff. And so I always kind of went to it in my own space. And Oh my gosh, I completely forgot, like lost my train of thought. But I would just, so then, talking to my sister about it, it was like, what was that? I completely see. Sometimes they're like, nope, you're not supposed
No,
to share it.
you're talking about the sonic energy and how you move it through, and then your sister said she did it.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So I never, like, I didn't have a coven of witches, right? And they always say, like, there's so many wonderful things about a coven, but one of the main support systems of it is the amplification of energy and the shared intention, radiating the energy out at the same time. So a lot of times when I need to manifest something kind of big in my life, I will do this kind of spell work at a concert, because you have like all of these people raising all of this energy, and you have like live music, which has always been a huge part of like helping me to raise that energy. Like more so like when I'm sort of in like a trance state, it's always usually like induced by music, and I can kind of do it in that way. This is very weird, and but there's are you familiar with like the meditative, I'm gonna not get this correct, but like a whirling dervish is a Turkish priest, monk, spiritual being, and they go into a meditative state in this rolling sort of space. That's kind of the only way I can like physically give you an example of, if you could Google it, what it would be like.
Yeah.
We're creating a whirling energy of like pulling it up and like spiraling it up and then shooting it out.
I love this conversation because it's so different from the way I experience my life, my world, which we talked about before was the whole point of doing the show. It was like you have this one set of tools and this one way of being that you've used your whole life to like moderate success, some places better than others. But then there's this conversation that you and I are in that I'm like, you're doing what, where, how, what? Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. And what else, just really struck me about what you shared was that this was like a self-experienced, self-guided journey for you. It seems only not, it's not even, it doesn't even sound like still there's this like relaying back from other sources, which is just speaks so much to the trust that you talked about in the beginning. It's like you're aware of these experiences and senses in yourself and you trust to use them.
Yeah, and the trust can build and get stronger and stronger the more you begin to educate yourself. I'm a huge advocate. If you ever ask me, Leslie, how do I begin? I feel really called to witchcraft. Go to the library or go to your local witch shop and support buying books from their shop. And another thing recently too, I've been behind the wheel, so I've got a lot of time to think recently. And there are two autobiographical books on witchcraft. One is by Phyllis Curott, and it's called Phyllis Curott. I always think two T's are a hard T. Which is called Book of Shadows. And then there's Amanda Yates Garcia's book Initiated, and they're two of many autobiographical books out there on one witch's account of coming into this world. And it's really helpful. And that's what I had when I was 21 years old, was reading Phyllis's book. And now we have podcasts, and so we get to hear, our witch friends and our magical people share their experience. But really beginning to listen to that experience is some of the moments where it's like, oh my gosh, I feel that way too. But the other thing I wanted to share before we're out of time is in all areas, although I recommend books, buy books, read books, I love books. Before you pick that book up or before you buy a guidebook or read the guidebook for your tarot cards, let them teach you first and trust your intuition. That is one of the strongest, best ways to connect in with your intuition, because your intuition will help you set the intentions you need, which is like my magical formula. If we want to talk about witchcraft math,
Yeah.
your intuition leads to, setting an intention plus manifestation, pardon me, setting your intention plus action equal manifestation. So you can't just say that you want something to happen and then not move towards it. You have to, set that declaration, make that statement, and then move for it, acting as if, saying, yes, I believe, I trust, I've surrendered, I've created this devotional practice. I've created also to, a practice of honoring, of gratitude for my team. You can place offerings at trees, you can bury rocks, you can, offer the river roses or honey or stones. A lot of times I'll like take my broken stones there. All of these things create your manifestation, your spell, all of it to me. And that's like everything I do is a spell. The way I speak, the words I choose, the way I dress, everything is intentional.
Oh, I'm so glad we're here in this conversation. I want to talk for 10 more hours about this. Um, I love to like reflect back to myself because I'm typically like, if there's magician, there's like muggle. And I feel like I'm a magician in many ways, and I'm also a great example of what not magic is. And so when you talk about intention plus action is manifestation, I'd love to kind of just dive into perhaps a tiny bit more nuance with action, because action was actually never my problem, nor I intention may or may not have been. I'm not sure. We could have another conversation about that. Action was never my problem, and action doesn't, or lack of action rather. But there's something really important about the intuition piece when it comes to action and manifestation that I'm only just sort of, I think, really starting to get. Can you talk a little bit more about like where intuition falls in that witch math formula?
Yeah. It kind of comes before, in the middle, and after. Before, sensing that something more is needed. I don't just sit there and do spell work every day. Although I am feeling called to a little bit of like more of a daily practice. But I've always operated like when I feel, or to use our word, like if I'm tuning in or have some sort of an intuition on the feeling that I need to do a little extra work in this area, around my dream space. When I say dream space, like my dream actualization, my wish fulfillment, then I'll kind of rev up my work there. If I feel, wow, I need to maybe lock down my protection a little bit more, set some stronger boundaries and do work around that. That's where the intuition will come in, sort of that like poke, like, hey, you need to do some work. It's time to get to work. Like we need you to come to your altar. Although I come to my altar every day, we need you to come to your altar and do the work. And then I sort of kind of gather and set that intention. And that intention comes in, it's like informing the universe, this is what I'm about to do. And then I think choosing your words with the intention, saying, being very careful with like, I call them dirty words, which is can't, have not, some of those like, need, want, should. Yeah, like those are my dirty words. I am. These are words that create a clear tone to the universe and a frequency that's like, oh, Vanessa has this thing. So we just have to support her in that. And we just have to rush up and meet her and make it happen because she has it. So beginning to create, and right, I'm a linguist, I'm Mercury, I'm Gemini. So like words are spells. The way that I say things are spells. Being absolutely, exacting in your word is one of the most important things that you can begin to do as a witch. Like for me, it's like, it's not anything about the look or the aesthetic. It's like, I need to get clear with my word and my will. And one of the first spells that I casted was quitting smoking. And I was just like, I'm quitting smoking. And every time I pick the cigarette, I'm like, I'm telling the universe that I don't trust what I'm saying and that my magic and my words don't have power. So I put the cigarette out, so that's kind of how I quit.
It's so fun to hear this. And I hope at some point my coach Devin is watching, because he's gonna definitely wrap this back towards me. But it's one of the things that's so beautiful that I see more and more, especially in this conversation, is when you go into I guess the deeper you go into personal development work, which I am as a coach, they're all the same. This is exactly what you hear.
And that's why so many people are waking up, because so many people have access to coaches, therapists, alternative healers. And we're waking up and we're healing ourselves and we're healing ourselves. And the more we do that, the more in accord, in unison and in harmony we are with the universe. And the more that we do that, the more magic we see every day, the more that we see that our will is powerful and our words are powerful. And we start to like draw the connections to like, wow, I said that I have that and I got it in a month, And I just want to speak very quickly on action, because that's something you wanted to talk about.
Thank you.
Action is acting as if. Your action is acting as if, which means I have it. I own this. For example, I'm currently in the process of buying a new home. I'm looking, I'm searching, I'm working towards it. And I spend every day acting as if it's already arrived. I've packed up things in my house. I'm purchasing things for the new house, all of this kind of thing. I'm saying I'm preparing for the arrival. And a lot of times the way that I've explained it, which I'm not totally comfortable with, but I think it drives the message home, is like placing an order online or placing a food order for delivery. You're not going to place an order online or place an order for food, although sometimes it gets lost in the mail. But you ultimately you put that order in, you expect it to arrive. And you go about your day and you're doing your laundry, doing the dishes, and you're just waiting for that thing to arrive because it's coming to you, because you trust that it is, because you've already put your order in. And I feel like in this day and age, that's one way of kind of connecting with the information and finding a practical way of understanding magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. I keep coming back to what you said a minute ago, which is that intuition comes in before, during, and before, in the middle, and after, because I don't know how, but somehow I would have deleted intuition in the before and after. And I would only have, at one point I would delete it altogether, but if I would have guessed where you were going to say intuition played into that equation, I would have said in what action to take next. But it would have never occurred to me to bring intuition into your intention and your vision, or in what happens after the action you take.
Yeah. So we understand that like during, intuition will inform us by the messages we may receive. Like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm close. I have a magnetic pull, right? I intuitively feel like we're near. And then the intuition after, for me, is it's kind of linked to the before, and it kind of makes me think of like the Fool in the World card. Right, because the Fool intuitively knows that they need to step out and do something. And then the World card is like, okay, we did that thing. Now what's the next thing? Like, so it's almost like your intuition asking, it's almost, how do I want to put this? Your intuition stating, and then your intuition informing during, and then your intuition asking at the end. Okay, that's complete. Now what? What's next? And then checking in with does this feel right? Am I into,
So funny that you would pick that, because my card for this month from our reading.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Did it show up in a reverse position for you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're learning about reading, do you read a reversal as a reversal, or do you think about it in an intuitive way?
Um, I don't know.
It's so funny that that's the thing. Like for me in the beginning, I was like, no reversals. And then I was like, well, maybe reversals. And then I was like, then my team was like, what's all this deal with reversals? Who gives a crap about reversals? There's so many ways to think about a reversal. It's energy coming in, it's energy coming out. It's, the need to realign or reconnect with something. It's another lesson coming around that you didn't learn the first time. It's something you've forgotten. It's a block in your life. It's something that happened in a past life. Like there's so, and then I think about reversals as retrogrades, since we're during Mercury retrograde. And I love to think about retrogrades as our E words, which is a reversal. So realign, reconnect, re-envision, review, reconfirm,
And all of those things appear to be equally true simultaneously for me this month. So it's really fun that is probably the realign more than anything.
Yeah.
I love the idea. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, like, the most important RE word being rest,
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one? Reward. Reward. There's so many, I tend to stick with more positive.
Yeah, I know, which is why I love your readings. I always refer back to yours. I never really Google them. So I'm like, no, Leslie's is way more fun. Yeah. This is really beautiful. I love that we kind of naturally came to this place of like where it falls into how we can engage with this magic. And so you said something that I kind of want to just ground us into, which was, I'll probably forget now. You said, preparing. I love the definition of action as preparing for arrival. How fun is that?
Yeah. Yeah. It shifts the perspective. And I think it clicks in for a lot of people when you look at it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And again, we're human. And sometimes preparing for arrival can take us a couple times to get there. Mm-hmm. And that's where I will employ, like rewiring my brain. Like, wait a minute. Nope. Don't forget. It's coming. Mm. And then that also comes into another thing that is one of the most important things in my life right now, which is divinity, divine timing. Trusting again, right? This divine timing that everything flows in at the right time. And I just read recently, these aren't my own words, but I read somewhere else where somebody was talking about divine timing being the moment in which you are prepared to receive.
Wow.
Are you really prepared to receive the intention that you've set into motion?
That's fascinating. I've never heard of divine timing talking about that.
Which then says, like, this is where sometimes, people might say, well, my spell didn't work. Well, let's talk about why it might not have worked.
And I could see a beautiful way to integrate tarot into that kind of a question. Like if I'm not receiving what I want to, and I'm looking at divine timing through, am I prepared to receive? I could pull something that's like, what's in the way of me being prepared to receive? Like, what's the thing and what shows up in that space? And then, something that's been great about this conversation that I don't often do. Like the first thing I do when I pull my card, even if I know the card as I go to the book, instead of being like, what shows, what's right there? What is right there? And sometimes, luckily, my intuition's loud enough that like something comes through and I can't pay attention to the reading. But I just love the idea of reversing the order. Intuition first, not external influence second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Good. Is there anything you feel like, just as a last question to wrap us up, is there anything you feel like that, like, it doesn't matter if we talked about it or not, that just feels also really important to share on this topic of, I mean, we started with tarot, but we really got to tarot, trust, intuition. I love that we bridged into all those spaces. Is there anything else that we missed that needs to be shared?
Yeah, there's one other thing that I've been really asked to talk a lot about, this year. When I say asked, I mean by my team, my group. And I think you and I might have talked about it in your reading too, but it's the concept of a container or a vessel. And, even just saying the affirmation every day that I am a vessel. I am a container for divine wisdom. I'm a container for purity. I'm a container for light. I'm a container for change, but thinking of yourself as a vessel being such a sacred space, such a temple. I also think of my body like which is kind of a family joke, but I think of my body as a temple. My mother always used to say my father always used to say your body is the temple of God, like nobody's allowed to when I started dating and stuff, but thinking of yourself as that divine temple, right? Like that divine vessel, and being a container for that wisdom, that grace, that sovereignty, that empowerment, that courage, that bravery, like pouring those words through your vessel, like the top of your vessel every day. I always have this vision of these beautiful celestial beings, gods, goddesses, whatever you want to call them, just streaming this light just down in through my crown into my vessel.
That's beautiful. And then this reminds me of something I received. I follow a woman who shares like Akashic records, and she said the other day something that's really struck me. She said, your only job is to keep your energy clear.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's really fucking simple. Like what? And it just kind of reminds me of that. Like how clean is your vessel? How clear is that space to receive, to know, to trust, to fall? It's hard to trust your intuition when it's mixed up with so much other shit.
Yeah, that was like the first thing that we discussed at the very beginning, is like keeping your channel pure and clear. It really is. And like the more that you're able to clear it, the more you're going to understand when it's like, stocked up with gunk and debris and psychic debris and all that kind of stuff. And then clearing it, which you can do through grounding your energy or taking a salt bath or, surrounding yourself in a sphere of protection. All of these things are tips that I have on my website.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is a beautiful kind of like just transition into okay, so you're obviously like an infinite depth and pool of wisdom. So what is your website? How can people get more from you, including readings and...
Yeah. So my website is ceremonialshop.com. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at ceremonial_PGH. Instagram is my main vehicle for talking about events at the store and sharing, any sort of updates about me and what I'm doing. And my TikTok is more a really fun project that I get to do with my spiritual team, meaning, again, my unseen team, where I do sort of like virtual, I suppose, healings or groundings. I call them energy hugs. My mom used to always say, energy hug. So it's kind of my container for energy hugs. I also do a podcast with my friend Allison called Ask a Hag. We talk about witchcraft and the work that we do every day as healers and witches. And I have a shop in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the neighborhood of Point Breeze on 6739 Reynolds Street. Readings, I book up. I'm currently booked right now. I'll be updating my books for September, October, and November. And you can book a reading on my website.
And I cannot recommend that enough. I feel like it's like usually October every year that I email you and I'm like, when can I get on for January?
Up to date. Let's
go. Thank you for being here. And I love where this conversation went. There's so much in here for someone and myself included, to really deepen that connection and create more magic. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.